Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. We're going to continue with, arrange my desk a little bit here, with the Gosho on protecting the nation. One of the things I'm enjoying about this Gosho that I often do with Nichiren is that, one of the exeges that Shakyamuni gave his students and throughout all the scholarship of Buddhism to study all of Buddhism, to study broadly, because ultimately there, until you get to the Lotus Sutra, which is the teaching of self-practice, there's very simple one method of awakening Buddhahood immediately in your life, in your mind. Your path to understanding, your path to confidence, knowing, a sense of surety that, there's Buddha for me to experience. There's my mind can unglue itself, if you will, from all of the stuff that brings up feelings of loss or fear or attachment or intimidation, anxiety in general, stress, which is, why we practice Buddhism, right? To live our life as fully as expressing all of the potential we have, much of which is unknown because we're so busy fretting, for you guitarists out there, about all the things that we have to achieve, have, possess, fear, right? It's all illusion because everything is flowing. And perceiving the world that way, extremely difficult for we samsaric beings, yeah? But back to my original point, or if I have a point, is that when we study Nichiren's writings, whether they're personal letters or treatises like this one, especially treatises or remonstrations or teachings for his student monks, right? We learn so much about, on the one hand, Japanese history, certainly up to the medieval times, which was the time he was living, shogunate, samurai, all of that. But also, he always throws in how we got to Japan historically through Buddhism. So he talks about China, north and south, and what Chi accomplished, and occasionally about Korea, which is traveling from Korea to Japan is where the warrior hero of Japan who turns into culturally Hachiman, the great a deification, if you will, of this warrior. So we learned folklore, we learned some history, we learn about India as well as. I've never heard him talk about Gandhara, but Gandhara is really a region of north, no longer, but northeast India, which is now shared by several countries, but incredibly important to the transliteration and writing down of these oral teachings. So you might want to study on your own if you're into that sort of thing. But this is what I was saying, is what I deeply appreciate about Nichiren, because we're not just learning about this one teacher, this one great sage, this bodhisattva, and his opinion. What we're learning is about how he got to his opinion. We're learning his study. And by default, we're learning about the whole history of Buddhism. How did it develop? Why are there different sects? And what are the differences between the sects? And certainly from the lens of Nichiren's perspective of a purist wanting to study and practice as Shakyamuni taught, his goal, Shakyamuni's goal. Nichiren is very, I would say, a strict scholar of how this is to be done, especially now in our 10,000 year period of the latter day of the law, or the latter day of enlightenment, where the teachings are greatly obfuscated. No more obfuscated than they are by errant sects and egos and agendas, right? That's a sure way to lose the purity of any teaching, is to have a bunch of competing interests all claiming, do it this way, pay the gateman, and and then you'll have access to, and which has nothing to do with Buddhism. Buddhism from the get-go was about a very egalitarian, everybody can do this. Here's the way to do it, just do it. Self-practice. And we all have our various ways of understanding, ways of misunderstanding, obstacles that we particularly have, right? Remember all the times you've let it out and complain about something, and somebody else who was hearing you, a friend or a relative or whatever, said, yeah, but you got to put that over here, and you got to, and you look at them like, what are you, from Mars? In a way, yeah, because we all have a structure that is constructed. So what constructs our particular John, Bob, Betty construction is all of the energies and all of the assemblages of energies and particles and forces that manifest as you and I. And those are particular. There's a lot of similarities, don't get me wrong, but those little differences amount to the way our mind perceives the world around us and ourselves. I mean, I'm 65. I don't recognize the person I was at 40, 30, 20, 15. I can't relate to that person. It's like a foreign country to me. I know, and I remember enough of it to know how different I am than I was. All of this is to point out that Shakyamuni realized you have to study broadly, because you don't know where your footsteps through time are going to lead you ultimately to your Gohanzan, your portal to open Buddha-ness in your life, your potential, your aggregate, right? The aggregates, the skandhas, they're particular. And if everyone around you goes, I know what this is doing and I'm doing it, you just need to do it, you're like, okay, but I don't feel that way yet. Or I think I feel that way, but I'm not sure. That's why we study. Not because you need to learn what we all know, but your path to learning what we all have. See, it's already there. You just need to be able to go to your particular doorways and find your path. And if all you're doing is reading one thing, it may not address all of your questions, your doubts. It may not open the doors or windows that you need to open. Right? We don't even know the doors and windows we need to open. We just know they need to open because we don't feel confident. So don't feel lesser than, or it's just about confidence, right? Once you read a certain Gosho, or you hear something from a good friend who's trying to help you attain your Buddha-ness, and it clicks. It might click when you're trying to go to sleep at night, and it's just annoying you and it's suddenly, oh crap, I get it. Those moments are precious, and they're uniquely yours. And they charge you inside. And you may not perceive it, but you're also sloughing off a bunch of stuff that's been in your way all along, because your mind likes to hang on to stuff. That's attachment. That's the very thing that we're trying to get out of the way so that we can attain our brilliant, all-seeing, all-understanding mind, Buddha-ness. It sounds so simple, but our thoughts and our attachments are very tenacious. So don't be hard on yourself. That's why I end almost every video with, be kind to yourself. Understand that sometimes things only happen in little tiny steps. And then something happens, you don't even expect it, and boom, you have this major leap. Don't worry, there'll be more steps. That's just the nature of samsara. That's why we practice daily, right? We want to be prepared. We want to keep that door open. Even if we don't understand it, keeping the door open, practicing and being in the Buddha way helps us catch things as they happen. Oh, never saw that about myself. Am I that way? Right? Those are precious moments. Those are learning, self-teaching moments. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back to Nichiren. I just think knowing the history, for me, was a big incentive to continue to practice. Because I knew I wasn't practicing some isolated, esoteric little group think, like, a polite word is groupthink, a not so polite word is cult. And we're all cults of personality, right? But so what is a cult? It's any setting, even by yourself, if you restrict yourself to solely one source, one source of thinking, at the cost, as a conscious cost of not exploring outside of that one source. Now you could say, well, Nichiren's one source, and I will challenge you on that, because my very point in this talk so far is that Nichiren relies on several sources throughout Buddhism, and he explores them and shares them with us. This is what makes Nichiren such a great teacher, and a teacher for our time, because no time before this era of Mappo has there been so much distraction, so many ways of grabbing our samsaric attention and attaching us. 4,000 products for every single thought we can have. We're constantly barraged, but capitalism is a great confounder of enlightenment. It keeps you chasing after stuff you don't need, but you feel like you must have, right? And all of that is just, I'm not just talking about marketing, I'm also talking about ideas and what cubicle I fit into, what group do I fit into. We're so obsessed about belonging, having, not losing. We live in fear constantly of being left out, right? And yet, the truth of life is that life is everything. There is no being left out. That's a fear that's an illusion from our samsaric desire to be attached, to attach ourselves and to be attached by others. It eats us up alive. It's all stress and anxiety and fear, which causes heartburn and health problems and headaches and pain. Siddhartha Gautama saw this and was shocked by it. He grew up in total privilege and he couldn't understand how people didn't have all of that. And then that's what made him consider there must be a way that all human beings could just live with deep appreciation for life at every moment. Without, I mean, people are going to have accidents. People are going to get hurt. But it shouldn't be self-caused, right? And that's what led him to his search, which we have the good graces of learning what that is. Buddhahood, being enlightened, knowing with surety that this life is an amazing journey that's constantly changing, and we're just riding along with it, able to influence it and be influenced by the true nature of life rather than being influenced by the avarice and attachment and competition. That's an illusion, because that's based on ownership, of permanentizing, thingifying. Understand that the things don't go away, but the way we perceive the things is unattached. No need for attachment. Then you're free to enjoy it rather than being controlled by it, whatever it is, right? I don't mean that mystically. I mean, it is a is a hugely, unfathomably, incalculable number of things, isn't it? All right, enough blah, blah, blah. Chapter 2, Rise and Fall of Buddhism in the 3 Ages After the Death of the Buddha. History. Nichiren begins. In the 2nd chapter, I would like to explain the rise and fall of Buddhism during the 3 Ages. As you may or may not remember, India, the seat of Shakyamuni, Buddha, the beginnings of Buddha's proselytizing and teaching, right? Eventually, not long after Shakyamuni's death, outlawed Buddhism. Yeah, outlawed it. Drove it out. I like Hinduism with 1,000 different deities. It's easier to control people if they all have these millions of fears, right? I'll save you, says the king, right? Authoritarianism. We see it rise up in populations all over the world all the time. Egos, avarice, control, power. If you don't see it today in the world, then I'm not sure what you're reading or watching. It's everywhere. And it does really horrible things. Most of which, centrally of which, is about keeping people in a state of fear so that they dig in even deeper into the things they don't want to lose, like identity or financial whatever, or political ideologies, right? There's no reason to be so attached to these things to the point of killing one another, and yet that's the state of the world today, which Shakyamuni 3,000 years ago predicted. Here we are. And then the teachings, because they're so amazing, they rise up in Gandhara or China or North and South China. It's a huge country, right? Or Korea or Sri Lanka or Tibet, so on and so forth. In the 2nd chapter, he's going to talk about this journey from India on. the age of the true Dharma, the age of the semblance Dharma, and the latter age of degeneration after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha, which is our time now. This chapter consists of 2 sections. In the first section, I shall determine whether it is the sutras preached during 40 years or so before the Lotus Sutra, or the triple Pure Land Sutras that will last longer, helping people in the latter age of degeneration. In the second section, I shall determine whether the Lotus Nirvana Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras will last longer, being responsive to the people. Responsive is a good word. So why does he single out the Pure Land teachings versus the Lotus Nirvana? You can probably guess why the Lotus Nirvana hold a certain place in juxtaposition to all of the other teachings, and more specifically the Pure Land teachings. That's because those were probably the largest sect of teachings in Japan at the time, often referred to as Nembutsu, right? Because what is the Pure Land? It's the land of Amida Buddha. And the land of Amida Buddha is a place you can reach where you are detached and experiencing joy all the time, your Buddhahood, if you will. But just as a preface, we've talked about this so much, you should know by now, Amida Buddha is an invention of Shakyamuni Buddha in his teachings on the mind and the different mind states one can achieve. This is not the Lotus, the self-practice. This is the teaching for others. So picture yourself attaining this pure land, going to this pure land ruled by this other Buddha called Amida Buddha. But there is no Amida Buddha. It's a storytelling device. And the pure land is this land. It's just that you have a paradigm shift in your experience, in your mind, because you inculcate Buddha wisdom, Buddha vision, and you see the world and the universe as it truly is, and that liberates you from this samsaric habit of clinging, hanging on to, which causes all your suffering, right? So the Pure Land is this land. It's just your experience of it completely changes. That is Buddha-ness. We know that because we study Nichiren, we study the scholarship of Buddhism, and we talk about it all the time. But in medieval Japan, living in strict authoritarian government rule, having a lot of illiteracy, farmers and merchants who are just, they're not big readers, basically follow orders all the time. And when you follow orders all the time, part of you is very afraid. You may not act like it. You may not even think that you're afraid. But if authority says something, you kind of cower in your boots because it could mean a beheading or the loss of everything you own, just like that, right? So yeah, people live in a lot of fear. And so going to another place free of this fear sounds very appealing. This is the power of the Nembutsu, the Pure Land Sutras, that keep offering you this distant goal. One day you might get there. But those early teachings, you see how those are like the fable of the kid who cried wolf, or Cinderella, or any of these kind of fables we use to teach moral thinking, correct thinking, or thinking that makes us more docile to the authoritarians. Yeah. We have to pay attention to what the teachings are teaching us. Yeah? What's their purpose? And so you can understand how the powerful teachings of Buddhism offering you enlightenment could, to the right individuals, sound like, wow, I could really control the lives of a lot of people if I told them, I know how this works, and if you do what I tell you to do, look at all you can have. That's a powerful motivator, isn't it? But that's not Buddhism. That's greed, power, anger, manipulation, politics, right? So, yeah, it shows up a lot in the history of Buddhism. But tell that to somebody who's only known that their whole life. And Nichiren was quite a rebellious sort. He scared a lot of people. Whoa, you can't say that stuff. And looking around for the samurai that's going to behead them. Yeah, it's a fearful time. So Nichiren takes it on head on, and he's exiled several times. You know the story, right? In the second section, I shall determine whether the Lotus Nirvana Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras will last longer, being responsive to the people. It's an interesting sentence. Again, I reread it because it's not only that it's responsive to the people, but because the people feel that they're known, that they're being included in these teachings, the teachings enjoy popularity. It keeps them going longer because people perceive that it's more inclusive. You see? So, section 1, the pre-Lotus Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras. In this first section, I shall determine whether it is the sutras preached during the 40 years or so before the Lotus Sutra or the Triple Pure Land Sutras that will last longer, being responsive to people living in the latter age of degeneration. So now he's being more specific. He's allowing for the the True Land sects, because there's more than one, the Nembutsu, the chanting of Amida Buddha. He's allowing for that to be, in its time, helpful, educational, for people to move toward Buddhahood. But it doesn't guarantee Buddhahood in their life, obviously, because it's not designed to. It's a carrot, yeah? So at one time in human history, that carrot was meaningful. But now that we're in the latter age with all the distraction, the authoritarianship everywhere, that we need to break free from those cravings, those clingings, those bindings, those teachings are completely ineffectual. They don't lead us anywhere. So this is why the Lotus Sutra, right? Only the Lotus Sutra is responsive to your life today. These others are just intellectual nuggets. They might lead us to more confidence in the Lotus Sutra, but on their own, they don't have any merit. Question. It is useless to discuss the difference between Mahayana and Hinayana dharmas, profound and shallow teachings, or supreme and inferior doctrines. They should be responsive to our needs only if we choose one suitable to our time and our capacity for understanding. Right? You don't teach calculus to a 4-year-old. Yeah. There are exceptions, but those are very, very few, aren't they? All right, so let's not have those kind of petty arguments. However, it is stated in such sutras as the Kalpa of Continuance Sutra, the Sutra of the Great Plan, and the Sutra of the Great Assembly that beyond 2,000 years after the decease of the Buddha, should say extinction, not of the Buddha, but of Shakyamuni, the Buddha's teachings will all become worthless. That is to say, his teachings will remain, but nobody will put them into practice or attain Buddhahood by practicing them. So that's a very important point. It goes to what I was saying earlier, that 2,000 years after Shakyamuni goes into extinction, Buddha still remains because it's a perception reality, right? That never goes away. As long as sentient beings exist, Buddha is there. It's just to be experienced. So what he's saying is his teachings will remain, the earlier teachings, but no one will bother putting them into practice because they're so arduous and take so much time. It's like, I don't have time for this, because we're starting to move toward this age where we don't have time for anything anymore, right? Or they'll put them into practice and not get anywhere. It'll just be this rote habitual thing they'll do. It won't get them to experience what they're chasing. They'll be chasing it like it's not here, like it's only after their death that they'll figure it out. Still clinging to that idea that there's something outside of this life of suffering. There is, but it's right here now. You need to experience it now. Oh, no, that can't be. Must be after I die. No. Gosh, why do humans think this way? It's always greener on the other side, right? Just like life. Life sucks. We're here to suffer. When I die, maybe I'll have a chance at something better. Dude, it's right now. It's in your mind. Yeah? So obviously, these earlier teachings, they don't work. Accordingly, when we open the Treatise on the Light for the Latter Age of Degeneration by Grandmaster Dengyo, we find it states, quote, the 20th year of the Enraku period, 801 AD, is the 1750th year after the decease of the Buddha, according to one view, end quote. It has been more than 450 years since the 20th of the Enraku period, so we are already in the latter age of degeneration, after 2,000 years. Therefore, even if we have the teaching of the Buddha, none of us can put it into practice or attain Buddhahood. If this is the case, not even 1 out of 10,000 practicers of Buddhism would be able to attain Buddhahood. This is facts from the very writings, the very texts of pre-Lotus Sutra teachings and the Lotus Sutra, all of Shakyamuni's teachings. However, it is stated in the Two-Facile Sutra, the Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life, Buddhism will become extinct in the future, but with compassion and pity, concern for others, in other words, I shall have just this one sutra remain in this world for 100 years. Those who encounter this sutra, then, will all be saved as they wish, end quote. According to this passage, it is clear that in the latter age of degeneration, after the complete destruction of the entirety of teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha preached in his lifetime, the teaching of the Nembutsu of the Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life alone will remain, responding to the people, the needs of the people. Skimming through commentaries by the Pure Land Masters, we find that they sound alike because their commentaries are all based on this passage. In China, for instance, Zen Master Dao Cho declared, quote, the current latter age of degeneration is the evil of 5 defilements, when only the teaching of Pure Land Buddhism is the way to enlightenment. There it is. This is the way, no other way. Venerable Shandao, and I hear you, don't worry. During the 10,000 year period of the latter age of degeneration, the 3 treasures of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, will all disappear, while only this sutra will remain for 100 years. So they've given it a limit too, 100 years. And the Grand Master Tsuten, other sutras, quote, other sutras all disappear in 10,000 years of the latter age. Only the teaching of the Buddha of Infinite Life will prosper, responding to the needs of the people. In Japan, Venerable Isshin, or Genshin, a late monk of virtue on Mount Hiei, wrote the essential collection concerning rebirth in the Pure Land. There it is, that rebirth thing. in which he collected the essence of the holy teaching preached during the lifetime of the Buddha as a guide for the people in the latter age. In its preface, Venerable Eshin declared, quote, "The teaching and practice for rebirth in the Pure Land of Bliss are the eyes and legs for people in the latter age of defilement and corruption. Among monks and lay persons, high and low, who does not believe in this? However, the exoteric and esoteric teachings are not a few in number, with many ways of practicing them. It may be possible for men of wisdom and perseverance to practice these teachings. Nevertheless, how can it be possible for an ignorant person like myself?" End quote. Following this, he also declared, quote, "Especially the teachings of the Nembutsu will only help people in the latter age of defilement and corruption after the extinction of the teaching of the Buddha." End quote. Thus, scholars of various Buddhist sects generally agree with this idea of the Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life. Scholars of the Tendai sect, after Venerable Eshin especially, should not disagree with this, should they? Answer. Each of those sutras, preached during 40 years or so before the Lotus Sutra, prospers and declines depending on the times and the capacity of the people. So most of them would disappear before the triple Pure Land Sutras. Most of those sutras preach attainment of Buddhahood by the three vehicles, Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, and Bodhisattva. You remember at the beginning of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni is addressing Shariputra, and he says to Shariputra, "No, there are not three ways, nor two ways. There is only one way, the one vehicle, this one vehicle." Shakyamuni makes it abundantly clear that the method of attaining Buddhahood in the latter age is this one vehicle teaching, Myoho Renge Kyo. Dedicate yourself and receive the teaching, the invocation, the experience of Buddhahood. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. He explicitly says it in the Lotus Sutra. He doesn't say you must chant. He says you must read, embrace, recite, and propagate. What do you think read, embrace, recite means? All of his teachings were singing, chanting. So embracing, reading, writing, and reciting is Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. He's teaching it in that moment, right? That's the whole sutra. Lotus Sutra is all about doing this one way, which works for everyone regardless. That's why it's the self-teaching, right? Anyway, let's go on with Nichiren here. Most of those sutras preach attainment of Buddhahood by the three vehicles within one life. Well, that might be something most people did not realize, is that those teachings did teach about attaining in one life. So already we've made a major shift from multitudes of lifetimes, which, as we know now, is birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, this moment-to-moment life of everything is shifting moment to moment to moment to moment. That's why I call it a flow, right? It's energy, momentum, yeah? Yet it is very rare for people in the latter age to attain Buddhahood within the present life because of their inferior capacity. What's inferior capacity? Our avarice for things, our fear of losing things, our possessive natures. As long as we can't let go of that, we can't perceive differently, which is Buddhahood. Rebirth in Pure Lands all over the universe is therefore preached mostly to help people of low caliber in the latter age, to encourage the working class to keep working, because one day they might get there. Boy, doesn't that sound like a device we hear all the time in everything, not just Buddhism. That's the way of governance these days, right? This big promise. The economy will get better. You will get more jobs. All these fake promises that they never carry out because it's fake. It's a promise meant to keep you chomping at the bit for the carrot. You see? It's a government device. It's a prestige, elitist, ego device in everything. Regarding this, most sutras recommend the Pure Land of Bliss to the west because it is near the Saha world. Now we get into an odd geographical kind of conceptualization, so bear with me. Because it is the lowest of pure lands, which is thought to be open even for ignorant people, and because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, making the west appear to be a place natural for death. Therefore, it was not only the founders of the Pure Land Buddhism that preached rebirth in the Western Pure Land. Expounding the pre-Lotus Sutras, Tendai and Miao Lo also preached this occasionally. So it was very popular for a time, yeah? It was not only Chinese monk teachers, but also Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu of India who believed in such rebirth. The view that the Pure Land teaching would last longer than any other pre-Lotus teachings is merely one of many. For instance, the Sutra of the Benevolent Kings claims to last longer than the triple Pure Land Sutras, namely for 8,000 years, beyond the 10,000-year period of the latter age of degeneration. It is therefore impossible to decide which of the pre-Lotus Sutras will last longer. Because of the competition amongst these different groups, they're all one-upmanship. Yeah, they say they'll last through the age of degeneration, but our teachings will last 8,000 years beyond them. We're better. Ego. Yeah? All right. Where are we time-wise? All right, this is section 2, the Lotus Nirvana Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras. I'll accept that we have a lot of popularity in Japan, right? I'm speaking like Nichiren. That most of what we hear in Japan isn't about these other schools that even say they last longer than the Pure Land. But in Japan, the Pure Land Sutras have the greater proponents and have spread broadly in Japan. So let's just address that. And that'll stand in for all of the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. Follow? This is what he's doing. So he's saying, okay, forget about all these other arguments, which is better, which is worse than Pure Land. They're all pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. So let's just accept the argument that the Pure Land is the more expedient, right? Let's compare the two. So now we have an easy this or that rather than these or that. Actually, he's including, but in a clever way, right? In this second section, I shall determine whether the Lotus Nirvana Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras will last longer, being responsive to the people. In other words, which one works? Which one's effective? Which one actually produces results? That's responding to the people, yeah? Question, which will disappear first? The Lotus Nirvana Sutras or the Triple Pure Land Sutras? Answer, the Triple Pure Land Sutras will disappear before the Lotus Nirvana Sutras. Ba-dum-bump. Okay. He's just setting up the stage, right? How do you know this is the next question. Yeah, now we get into the answer. I don't want to go on too long here, but let's just start it out, and that's something you can ponder until I put up the next video. Is that okay? So, answer. Referring to the representative sutras preached during the 40 years or so of the pre-Lotus period, the Sutra of Infinite Meaning declares truth. The truth, quote, the truth has not yet been revealed in them, end quote. Pretty straightforward to understand. It means that words and letters in the Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life, such as, I shall leave just this one sutra in this world for 100 years, are all expedient and false. Judging from the truth preached in the Sutra of Infinite Meaning, the teachings of rebirth in the Pure Land, or the attainment of Buddhahood preached in sutras such as the Flower Garland Sutra, Hodo Sutras, Wisdom Sutras, and sutras of meditation on the Buddha of Infinite Life, whether occurring suddenly or after kalpas, eons of practice, right? Quote, will not in the end be able to lead us to the supreme Buddhahood even after practicing them for an infinite, unlimited, inconceivable number of eons. So on and so forth. Because practicing them is like walking up a steep path, encountering many obstacles, end quote. What does he mean by that? Walking up a steep path, encountering many obstacles. That's samsara. That's unenlightened life. Right? Do you ever, while you're at work or the baby's crying in the other room or whatever, you think to yourself as you're pondering your life in those moments that we do, and you're thinking, man, life is hard. It's like I'm walking up a hill. I never catch a break. Or if I do, it's very temporary. It's immediately followed by, this is arduous. And then something happens, you have to take a cut and pay, or you get a flat tire and you can't really afford to fix it, so you're running around on that little minuscule tire, always worried that it'll blow too. Obstacles to experiencing your life fully, because what you're experiencing is fear and struggle and pain. Yeah? That's what that means. That even with these earlier practices, they're not suited to our capacity, not suited to what we can achieve. So it's like keeping that old car going as long as you can because you can't afford to do anything about it. So you struggle with flat tires. You struggle with putting a can of oil in it every week because it's just burning oil. That kind of thing. Those are obstacles, and that's life, like having to go up a hill all the time. And, those teachings, unless you're stuck in them, you know that they're not going to liberate you, right? So that's what that means. Both rebirth in the Pure Land and the attainment of Buddhahood preached in those sutras are merely expedient to encourage idlers. Again, it's the carrot. Come on, things will get better. Come on, look, this, you can have this. You can have this. Right? The Sutra of the Great Assembly, Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life, and others explain which sutras will or will not disappear and in what order. But these opinions are all expedient because they're all in service to that carrot. Keep going. You'll get there. Come on. Yeah? But there's no there to be had. Expediential sutras preached before the Lotus Sutra are the same as non-Buddhist teachings. You're not doing anything different than other habit-forming, claiming, carrot-wielding ideas. It's religion. It's unprovable, unsubstantiated, no experience in life. Just tapping into that innate desires of samsaric life. We're natural creatures of attachment. So if you attach us to something that's impossible, we're still attached. And we never question it. Right? That's so ignorant. Ignorant of what? Enlightenment is in your grasp. You're just not experiencing it. Hello? Wake up. Awakening. You see how the language has the answers in it if we want to see them. Expediential sutras preached before the Lotus Sutra are the same as non-Buddhist teachings in which no one can be reborn in the Pure Land or attain Buddhahood. For instance, rivers which do not flow into the oceans cannot become one, and people and subjects who do not follow their great king cannot be united. No matter how hard we practice such teachings, there will not be any merit, any reward at all, unless we reach the Lotus Nirvana Sutras. They're all in service to the ultimate self-teaching sutra. That's the way it was taught. That's what it means. That Shakyamuni repeated it. Tendai sifted it out. Nagarjuna, in his own way, repeated the basics, building blocks of getting to the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus is the right now, immediate, no pure land over there or distant goal. It's right now. Just do it. And you have proof. You'll see life change. You'll see your empowerment, your sense of life expand right now. There's no carrot. Why is there no carrot? Because it's immediate. It's when you do it, you're in it. The challenge is your own carrot to maintain it as you course through your samsaric life. You're the one who puts that carrot there because the carrot is your enlightened self. Once you instantiate Buddha in your mind, free of distractions, and you really sense it and feel it, isn't that the place you want to stay? You did that. That's yours. You did that on your own, with your own skill, using this clear method of invoking your Buddha in your mind. Yeah? Nobody gave it to you. Nobody held it in front of you and said, you can do this. You're going to do that. Because once you experience that, oh my gosh, that's where you want to stay. How incredible would it be to live life with that kind of life state constantly? So I may sound like I'm handing you a carrot, but that's yours to discover. All of this blah, blah, blah is about creating the conviction in you that this is already yours. You need only experience it. You don't have to qualify. I'm not going to send you a test. Are you ready to be enlightened? If you don't pass this test, you can't have it. Baloney. That's the carrot and stick thing. I'm just pleading with you. Do this. Look, you'll find out for yourself. I can't give this to you. Nor can anyone else. Nor can they hold it away from you. No, you pass this test. You blah, blah, blah this, blah, blah, blah this, and maybe I'll give you. Screw you. I'm not getting awakened in my Buddha nature to please you. Let me be enlightened. Then I'll think about pleasing you. Yeah? Right? Isn't that the proper order? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again. Not today, anyway. They are the teachings nobody practices, and no one can attain Buddhahood by practicing them in the latter age of degeneration, as well as during the after the lifetime of the Buddha. In winter, however, trees appear dead, but pine and oak trees do not wither. Grasses die, but chrysanthemums and bamboos remain unchanged. The same is true with the Lotus Sutra, which will remain forever helping people even after other sutras all disappear. Shakyamuni Buddha declared in the 10th chapter on, quote, the teacher of the Dharma, chapter of the Lotus Sutra, that the Lotus Sutra was supreme of all the sutras he had preached, was preaching, and would be preaching. Keeps reminding us that the Shakyamuni himself answered this question. Moreover, in the 11th chapter, on the appearance of the stupa of treasures, the jeweled stupa, or the treasure tower, as it's also known, the Buddha of many treasures attested that the Lotus Sutra to be true. And in the 21st chapter, on the divine powers of the Buddha, Buddhas manifested in various worlds all over the universe also verified the truth of the Lotus Sutra by touching the Brahma heaven with their tongues. Their sole purpose was to have the Dharma of the Lotus Sutra last forever in this world. Drop the mic. Right? All right. Now there's a new question, and I think that's probably a good spot. There it is. To start the next video. 'Cause I don't want to bore you guys. But do you see how Nichiren works? His argumentation and his reliance on his incredible study of his life, of all of Shakyamuni's teachings and all of the various sects, they all point to the same answer. And because it's just like anything, if you pop up in a crowd and go, I know the answer, everyone's going to go, oh, really? Yeah? Same thing during his life. In fact, worse. Oh, we don't even like that you're saying that, so we're going to kill you. That was the reality for Nichiren, right? So what he's saying is, I'll entertain your questions. This is why he uses the question and answer thing. He says, I hear you. You're going to say this. You're going to say this or that of this teaching. So how can I say this? Well, let me show you. And he goes through and says, you say this, right? And this teaching says this. Okay, so how do you explain this? But because when you say that these Pure Land teachings say that you can reach this pure mythical land by chanting some invented name, because Amida isn't a person. Okay, but when you say that, you're denying all the other teachers and sutras that are also being taught in this time period. And they don't agree with you. So it's not just me. Although none of them is any better than yours. They're just a different flavor. Ultimately, they don't work. And how do I say they don't work? Because in their very verbiage, they don't work. Not for this lifetime. They've got all sorts of ways of boxing you in and making you think you're doing something of value when in fact you're just being preoccupied. Why do I say that? Nichiren says as he does this Q&A. Well, let me read you quotes from this sutra, the Lotus Sutra. And it says it really clearly, several times, in several chapters. It's just not some idle boast. This is the actual teaching. So how can you make your argument in the face of all of this proof from the source? I'm not the source, Nichiren. I'm not the source. I'm just pointing at it and saying, how can you not see the emperor's naked? All of you are oohing and ahhing at the emperor's new clothes, but he's freaking walking the street naked. Even the emperor believes it. Until one of us, sorry it has to be me, emperor's naked, and somehow like a lightning bolt it goes through everyone, and some people are like, shut him up. And some people are going, he sees it too. Crap, the emperor's naked. It's exactly that. This is Nichiren's position in the history of Buddhism. The emperor's naked. Not because he wants to embarrass the emperor. He's trying to help him. Dude, put some clothes on. Don't you realize? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. It's so obvious. right? So that's why we practice Nichiren's doctrine of the Lotus Sutra. It's not Nichiren we're following, it's Nichiren's doctrine and clarification that builds our confidence, our inner determination to practice Shakyamuni's self-practice teaching, Lotus Sutra, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Yeah? Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for your study and your determination. Profound appreciation for all of you. Like, subscribe, share. It's a great tool to share with some people if it's appropriate. Download the podcast, as I always say. You know, all the YouTube stuff. Don't forget the bookstore, the Gohanzan store. If you don't have a mandala, I don't know what you're waiting for. It is a significant tool to help you get your mind focused and experience Buddha right now. Yeah? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Stick with it. You'll experience it, and all you'll want is more. Don't take my word for it. You figure it out. You check it out. You do it. But if you want to know if it works, you've got to commit. Yeah? Just like taking a class in college or junior college, whatever. Right? You'll know after you take that 3-month class if it has any value for you in your life. Why should Buddhism be any different? But you got to commit. You got to get the grades. Otherwise, you'll always doubt, well, you know, I did it, but I didn't really do it. You don't want that. Why waste your time? All right. I'll let you go with that, and I'll see you in the next one with deep appreciation. See you soon. Or bye for now, right? Be kind to yourself.